Unions call for Luxon to step in and resolve collective bargaining impasses. So, picture this. Over 100,000 Kiwis walk off the job, nurses and teachers are marching in the streets. Firefighters are rallying instead of, well, fighting fires. And our Prime Minister Christopher Luxon, he's attending a funeral and basically texting back, "New phone who dis?" Welcome back to NZ Political Insights, where today we're diving into the spiciest workplace drama since someone stole Janet's yogurt from the staff fridge. Except this time, Janet is 6 entire unions, and that yogurt represents fair pay and working conditions. Let's get into it. What's up, political junkies? If you're new here, smash that subscribe button, because we break down New Zealand politics with the energy of a Wellington wind tunnel and twice the chaos. Today's story? 6 major unions have done the equivalent of sliding into the PM's DMs with a formal letter asking, "Hey Chris, can we talk?" But instead of roses and heart emojis, they're bringing collective bargaining impasses and 100,000 seriously unhappy workers. Buckle up, because this is about to get interesting. All right, so here's what went down. 6 heavyweight unions. We're talking the Association of Salaried Medical Specialists, the New Zealand Nurses Organization, the Professional Firefighters Union, the Post-Primary Teachers Association, NZEI Te Riu Roa, and the Public Service Association, all got together and penned a joint letter to Christopher Luxon. And when I say penned, I mean they basically wrote the workplace equivalent of "we need to talk" on a napkin and slid it across the table. In this letter, they're essentially saying, "Prime Minister, our collective bargaining is stuck harder than an Auckland motorway at 5 p.m. on a Friday. We need you to step in." Now, collective bargaining, for those playing at home, is basically when unions and employers sit down to negotiate pay, conditions, and who gets the corner office with the window that actually opens. When it reaches an impasse, that's fancy talk for nobody's budging and everyone's getting cranky. The unions pointed out that recent strike action, rallies, and marches weren't just for the aesthetic or the Instagram content, though I'm sure the turnout photos were fire. No, they were evidence of genuine frustration. Workers were basically screaming, "Please, can someone just listen to us?" into the void. The letter states there's enough commonality across these different sectors to warrant the PM getting involved. Think of it like when your flatmates can't agree on whose turn it is to take out the bins, so you call on a landlord. Except the bins are healthcare, education, and public safety, and the landlord is, well, running the country. But here's where it gets juicy. Because Luxon's response to all this? Well, let's just say it wasn't exactly a warm hug and a promise to sort things out over flat whites. So remember that massive strike last month? Over 100,000 people walked off the job. That's not a typo, 100,000. That's basically the entire population of Tauranga deciding collectively to peace out for the day. Some rallies didn't even happen because the weather said, "Not today, Satan," but the message was crystal clear. Now, you'd think when that many essential workers down tools, the PM might go, perhaps I should check in on this situation. But Christopher Luxon had, shall we say, other thoughts. He came out swinging harder than a Wellington southerly, calling the strike politically motivated. He basically said, "I feel no need to meet with them," which is the political equivalent of leaving someone on read and then posting a selfie 5 minutes later. His reasoning? The negotiations are done between the Public Service Commissioner and the CEO of Health New Zealand. They're the employers with the respective unions. Translation: not my circus, not my monkeys. Which, to be fair, is technically correct in terms of the chain of command. But when your house is on fire, you don't really care whose job description says fire extinguisher operator. You want someone to put out the fire. And get this, the timing. The strike happened on the same day as former Prime Minister Jim Bolger's funeral. Luxon attended the funeral, which, look, fair enough, paying respects to a former PM is important. But the optics? The optics were about as good as turning up to a vegetarian dinner party in a steak costume. Critics were quick to point out that maybe, just maybe, he could have acknowledged 100,000 workers expressing their concerns with slightly more than a shoulder shrug. Now, before you think this is just unions being dramatic, let's talk about why these workers are so fired up in the first place. Here's the thing about this situation that makes it more complicated than trying to understand the Auckland public transport system. These aren't just random workers complaining about the quality of instant coffee in the break room. We're talking about nurses, doctors, teachers, firefighters, the people who literally keep society functioning. These are the folks who show up when you're having the worst day of your life. Nurses who've been working through staffing shortages that would make a skeleton crew look overstaffed. Teachers who are buying classroom supplies out of their own pockets, while politicians debate education funding like it's a game of Monopoly. Firefighters who run into burning buildings while we run out. Medical specialists who've been sounding alarms about healthcare system strain since before it became a trending topic. The unions aren't just asking for random handouts. They're highlighting genuine issues. Pay that hasn't kept up with the cost of living, working conditions that are burning people out faster than a cheap candle, and staffing levels that have frontline workers doing the jobs of 2 or 3 people. It's like asking someone to bake a cake while only giving them flour and then acting surprised when they can't produce a 3-tier wedding cake with fondant flowers. The letter emphasized that while each sector has different specific issues, there's enough common ground, inadequate pay, poor conditions, understaffing, that a coordinated approach makes sense. It's not 6 separate fires. It's one big inferno, and everyone's just standing in different corners of the building going, "Is anyone else feeling warm?" So what happens next? Well, that's the million-dollar question, or should I say, the question that affects New Zealand's entire public sector. The Prime Minister's office has confirmed they received the letter and will respond directly to the sender, which is political speak for "we'll get back to you," with absolutely zero commitment to a timeline. It's the governmental equivalent of "let's circle back on that." Now, the unions believe that if Luxon stepped in personally, it could break the deadlock. Think of him as the ultimate mediator, someone with enough authority to knock heads together and say,